It was the first day of the new term at New Terra High Institute. The students walked through the tall glass gates with noisy laughter, hoverbikes flying by, and tech bags floating behind them. But no one noticed the quiet man standing near the front office. He wore a plain gray coat, held an old-fashioned bag, and had sharp eyes that watched everything, but said nothing. His name was Marlin. He was the new history teacher. No one expected much from him. He looked simple, maybe even boring. His shoes were not shiny. His coat had no brand tag. He didn't smile like the other teachers. And when the headmaster introduced him in the main hall, he only nodded once and said, "Good morning." That was all. The students whispered and giggled. Rick, Boz, and Tino, three of the worst troublemakers in school, were already planning how to mess with the new guy. Later that morning, Marlin walked into Class 4B. The students were loud, playing music from wristbands and throwing paper drones across the room. He stood at the front, calm and still. He didn't shout. He didn't slam his desk. He just picked up the chalk and wrote, "War is a lesson we refuse to learn." Nobody paid attention. Tino whispered, "Who writes with chalk in 2427? Boz laughed. Rick made a fake coughing sound and said, "Boring." Still Marlin didn't react. He turned to the class and began the lesson. Today, we study the old wars, the ones before space travel. You may think history is useless, but history knows all your mistakes before you make them. Some students sat back. Others yawned. Nia, one of the top students, noticed something odd. Marlin wasn't reading from a screen. He spoke as if he had lived the things he talked about. He spoke about silent assassins of Earth's past, who moved without sound and finished missions without leaving a trace. He described pressure points in the human body and how a single wrong move in war could destroy nations. But again, the class didn't listen. During the break, Rick and his friends met. In the back hallway. "He's weak," Rick said. "Did you see his face when I called him boring?" "Nothing, he's too soft." "I bet he won't last a week," Boz added. "Let's speed it up then," said Tino. The next day, they started their plan. They filled his chair with sticky foam. When he sat, the chair made a loud sound. The class roared with laughter. Marlin stood up, calmly cleaned the foam off, and continued teaching. No shouting, no warning, no anger. "See? He's a joke," Rick said later. Then they moved to part 2 of their plan. During lunch, they snuck into the teacher's room and swapped his notes with fake ones filled with drawings of cats and silly jokes. When Marlin opened the pages during class, the students started laughing again. But this time, he looked at the fake notes and smiled, just a little. Then he closed the book and said, "No need for notes. Let's talk about the Battle of Iron Hill." He spoke for 20 minutes, without looking at a single screen or file. His voice was calm but strong. He described every movement of soldiers, every twist in the plan, every mistake the generals made. Even Nia forgot to blink for a few seconds. Rick rolled his eyes. "Okay, maybe he reads war books. Big deal." That night, Mrs. Keel, the headmaster, called Marlin to her office. "You're not a normal teacher, are you?" she said, half smiling. "I've seen teachers cry after one day with 4B. Marlin said nothing. "Listen," she continued. "Some of these kids, they're connected. Their families run powerful businesses, even control local gangs. You don't need to prove anything here. Just survive. That's enough." "I understand," Marlin replied. He walked back to his room, a small apartment near the top floor of the school tower. He had few things. Just a single book, a small plant, and a drawer filled with simple clothes. But in one locked box under the bed, there was something else, a black case. It had no label. Inside were tools no teacher should have. He didn't open it. Not yet. The next day, the bullies tried again. They hacked the school hololab and trapped Marlin in a broken simulation of a burning city. The safety mode had been turned off. Anyone else would have panicked, but not Marlin. He walked through the flames like it was a garden. He found the system's core in seconds and restarted it. When the doors opened, he stepped out without a scratch. Was that supposed to be a lesson? He asked, staring at the boys. They looked away. Something about his eyes made their stomachs turn. That night, Marlin stood on the rooftop, watching the stars. A small drone buzzed near him. A message appeared on its screen. Target remains hidden. Continue mission. Observe. Do not engage. He tapped the drone once. It flew away in the shadows of New Terra. A silent war had already started. But no. One at the school knew the truth. They still thought Marlin was just a strange, boring teacher. They didn't know he was once called Ghost Blade, the deadliest assassin Earth Command had ever trained, and he was here for a reason, a dangerous one. Marlin arrived at school early the next morning, as always. His steps were quiet, his face calm. He walked through the empty halls while the janitors finished cleaning. The building was silent, but he noticed everything: the broken light, the changed camera angle, even the new smell near the lab door. Trouble was coming, and Marlin knew. Later that morning, Class 4B entered the room laughing loudly. Rick walked in with sunglasses, pretending to be a movie star. Boz threw a ball of paper across the room. Tino made a loud buzzing noise with his tech-glove. Marlin stood at the front, already writing on the board. Strategy is stronger than strength. He didn't look at them. That made them more excited. Sir, Rick said in a fake kind voice, I think you dropped something. He pointed to the floor. Marlin didn't look. No, Marlin replied calmly. Nothing is ever dropped unless you let go of it. The class laughed, thinking Marlin didn't understand the joke. But Nia, who sat near the window, looked curious again. This teacher never acted surprised, never confused, never nervous. Too strange for a history teacher. After class, Rick whispered to the others, Today we hit him harder. He wants to play quiet? Fine, we'll make him speak. Their next plan was ready. During lunch, they sneaked into the classroom again. Tino had a small device, the size of a coin. It looked harmless, but it could overload hover desks and send them crashing down. They placed it under Marlin's desk and left smiling. 15 minutes later, Marlin walked in, placed his bag on the desk, and sat. Crack. The desk dropped to the ground, legs bent inwards. A loud crash echoed through the room. Rick laughed first. The others followed. Boz even clapped, but Marlin stood up without a word, picked up the desk with one hand, and gently placed it to the side. He continued the lesson as if nothing happened. This time, the class was less loud. Even the bullies seemed confused. Did he lift the desk with one hand? Boz whispered. Yeah, Rick said slowly. He's hiding something. That afternoon, Marlin walked past the tech lab. He noticed a drone flying too close to the ceiling. He reached up, caught it in midair, and scanned its number. The drone belonged to Rick. Marlin sent it back with a note attached. Nice trick. Try something smarter. By evening, the three boys were angry. Their tricks were not working. In a small cafe near the school, they sat in the corner booth. He's not normal, Tino said. I checked his profile. It's too clean. Boz leaned forward, like it's fake? Maybe, Rick said. Let's go deeper. They knew someone who could help. Rick's older brother Mert used to be part of a street group. He had contacts. He knew how to look into hidden files. Mert agreed to help, but he wanted something in return. I'll find out who this Marlin really is, Mert said. But if I do, you owe me. Deal. Rick said. That night, Mert started searching. He tried every data door he knew: public records, school logs, government files. But every time he typed Marlin, the screen blinked. Access denied. Restricted profile. Level 7 Celia Reyes. He frowned. Level 7? That was military level. Back at school, something strange was happening. Nia stayed after class. "Sir," she said, "can I ask a question?" "Yes," Marlin replied without looking up from his board. "Why do you never get angry?" He turned slowly, his face unreadable. "Because anger is loud," he said. "And loud things are easy to defeat." Nia blinked. "That's not from a history book, is it?" "No," he said. "It's from life." Then he picked up his bag and walked away. The next day, the bullies had a new plan. They hacked into the school's hololab again. This time, they programmed a custom simulation. When Marlin entered, the lab would trap him in a high-risk military training zone, normally used by soldiers. No teacher could handle that. During his lunch break, Marlin entered the lab to check a lesson module. The trap was set. The door locked behind him. The room changed. The white walls turned black. Virtual bullets began flying. Fire, smoke, loud sirens. Explosions shook the floor. A normal person would have panicked, but Marlin moved fast. Silent, he rolled behind a fake wall, used his elbow to break a small control panel, and disabled the simulation in seconds. When the door opened again, he stepped out quietly. His shirt had a small burn mark. The students near the door froze. "You were in there 5 seconds. One of them said. Marlin nodded and walked away. Rick, Boz, and Tino watched from a hallway screen. "This isn't funny anymore," Boz said. "He's a ghost," Tino muttered. Rick stayed silent. That night, Mert didn't return home. His wristcom was found in a street alley. No blood. No signs of struggle. Only a note tied to the cum. "Curiosity is a dangerous game. Stop." The letters were written in perfect, clear strokes. Back at school, Marlin looked out the window of his classroom. He saw Rick walking into school, head low. The boy's smile was gone. Marlin didn't smile either. He simply wrote on the board, "Before war comes silence." Then he began the lesson. Night fell on New Terra City, and the streets turned quiet. Bright lights flickered over tall buildings, and flying vehicles passed like glowing insects. Somewhere between the old market district and the school zone, a man lay unconscious in a dark alley. It was Mert, Rick's older brother. When the security patrol found him, he had no wounds, no broken bones, not even a bruise, but he wasn't waking up. The med team checked him carefully and shook their heads. His pulse is normal. Brain waves are low, like he's sleeping without dreams. A small paper note was found in his jacket pocket. It said only 2 words, "Stay silent." The next morning, news of Mert's condition spread across the school like wildfire. Students whispered in the hallways. Teachers checked doors twice. Before locking them, Rick didn't speak much that day. Boz and Tino stayed close to him, trying to look tough. But the fear was clear in their eyes. Something had changed, something big. In Class 4B, Marlin stood in front of the board as usual. He had written, "The strongest weapon is the one you never see." His voice was calm as always. "Today we study the silent operations of Earth's Cold War period. No open battles. Just quiet missions, spies, and vanishings." Nia raised her hand. "Sir, is it true that some spies could erase a person's memory?" "Yes," Marlin said, "but only the best knew how." Rick looked up sharply. Marlin glanced at him for a second, just one, but it was enough. Rick looked away. The room stayed quiet for the rest of the lesson. That afternoon, Nia followed Marlin from a distance. She had seen too much. He moved too perfectly. He spoke like a soldier, not a teacher. She was sure now Marlin was hiding something. Maybe even something dangerous. She stayed far behind him, walking through the back corridors. Marlin moved slowly, with measured steps. He passed the science hall, turned into the storage wing, and then disappeared. Nia stopped. There was no door nearby, no window. Just an empty wall and a supply box. She looked around. No cameras. No sounds. Gone. Inside a hidden room behind the wall, Marlin opened a small black case. Inside were A foldable steel rod, a data chip with red markings, a pair of black gloves, a small photo of a man's face. Stared at the photo for a moment, then he tapped the chip to life. A robotic voice spoke softly. Agent M13, your target is near. Identity unknown. They are hiding inside New Terra High. Continue monitoring. Do not engage unless threat is active. Marlon placed the chip back in the box. Not yet, he whispered. Later. That night, Nia couldn't sleep. She opened her school tablet and searched for Agent M13. The school system blocked the name. She used a secret access code from her science club account and went deeper into public security logs. One file popped up. It had no photo, no full name. Just a title. M13, Earth Command Silent Division, last active mission, unknown. Her eyes widened. So he really was an agent. The next day, something strange happened. When Marlon entered the class, he noticed a small box on his desk. Inside were 3 items: a red pen, a toy gun, and a piece of folded paper. The note said, "Bang bang, you're boring. Time to quit." Marlon calmly placed the items back in the box and set it on the floor beside him. He said nothing. Instead, he began drawing on the board. A perfect map of the school, every hall, every classroom, every blind corner. The students stared in confusion. "This," he said, "is how weakness hides in plain sight. Not in books. In behavior, in silence, in dark corners." Boz shifted in his chair. Tino bit his lip. Even Rick didn't speak. After class, Rick met with his friends behind the gym. His face was pale. "This is bad," he whispered. "I think he's watching us all the time." "What do we do?" Boz asked. "Nothing," Rick said. "We wait." But they didn't have to wait long. That night, the school's main power grid glitched for 12 minutes. Cameras went dark. Alarms turned off. Security bots froze mid-step. In those 12 minutes, something happened. The lockers of Rick, Boz, and Tino were opened. Their private files, photos, and messages were copied, then wiped clean. Only one message was left on each screen. No more warnings. The boys panicked. Rick tried to report it, but the school system found no proof. Number. Fingerprints. No camera footage. No evidence. As if a ghost had passed through. The next day, Marlon stood as usual at the front of Class 4B. He wrote in calm strokes. "Some people speak with words. Others speak with silence." He turned to the class. "Today, we study the art of fear, not fear itself, but how it is used in power." Boz couldn't stop shaking. Tino looked ready to cry. And Rick, once full of pride, sat still with his head down. The class finally listened. IA watched it all unfold. She now understood. Marlon wasn't just a teacher. He was a protector, a watcher. Maybe something even more. That night, a drone flew quietly through the sky above the city. It carried a small message. The message read, "Target still unknown, but threats have been silenced. Continue observation." The drone disappeared into the stars. In the heart of New Terra High, Marlon cleaned the board, packed his old bag, and looked out the classroom window. He saw only clouds and lights, but his mind was clear. The real mission was just beginning. The sun was shining above the domes of New Terra High Institute as the students prepared for their yearly field trip. This time, they were visiting the New Terra Planetary Museum, a huge place filled with old Earth artifacts, war machines, and history of human expansion into space. Everyone was excited, except Marlon. He stood at the side of the school shuttle, arms folded, checking every student who entered. He wasn't worried about behavior. He was watching for something else. Someone else. Inside the shuttle, Rick, Boz, and Tino sat together. They had stopped their usual jokes and pranks since the last incident. But today, Rick had a strange look in his eyes. He glanced at Marlon and whispered, "Today, I'm going to make him slip." Boz frowned. "I thought we were done messing with him." Rick shook his head. He made me look weak. In front of everyone. I can't forget that. Tino looked nervous but stayed silent. The shuttle arrived at the museum. Giant steel doors opened as the group entered. Students ran to different sections, ancient. Swords, holograms of battles, and armor suits from old Earth wars. Marlon walked slowly, hands behind his back. He didn't need a map. He already knew the layout. He had been here before, not as a tourist. While the group toured the weapons floor, Rick quietly stepped aside. He opened a maintenance door and snuck upstairs, where a walkway ran along the museum's edge. He dropped a small bottle of oil near the railing and returned. A trap was ready. He waited. Soon, Marlon walked near that same walkway with a few students, including Nia. Rick bumped into him by accident and pointed up. "Sir, there's an old fighter jet up there. Can you tell us about it?" Marlon looked up. That model was used during the Mars Frontier War, designed for speed, not protection. "Could you show us from above?" Rick asked. Marlon gave a short nod and started walking up the metal stairs. Nia followed, curious. Rick smiled and whispered to Boz, "Watch this." At the top, Marlon stepped forward near the railing. His foot touched the oiled spot, but instead of slipping, he moved smoothly like water. His left foot spun slightly. His right leg balanced, and his body shifted gently like he had expected the danger. He didn't fall. He flipped. He twisted midair, landed softly on the ground below, on his feet, like it was part of a dance. Gasps filled the museum. Some students dropped their devices. Nia's mouth fell open. Even the security guard stared in shock. Marlon stood straight, brushed off his coat, and looked up at Rick. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. Back at school, rumors spread fast. "Did you see that jump? He landed like a shadow. I think he's not normal." Rick didn't speak. Boz and Tino didn't even show up to class the next day. That night, a GAN meeting took place in the city's outer zone. The GAN boss Torin Vex listened carefully as Mert, now awake but shaken, spoke with a trembling voice. I couldn't see him. He moved faster than light. I looked behind me, and he was gone. Then I woke up in the alley. Vex narrowed his eyes. "You're saying this teacher is a threat?" "I'm saying," Mert paused. "He's not a teacher." Vex stood up. "Nobody scares my people. Let's remind this ghost who runs New Terra." Back at school, Mia waited outside Marlon's room after hours. When he opened the door, he didn't look surprised. "You followed me again," he said. She nodded. "I want the truth." He let her in. The room was simple, clean walls, one chair, a bed, and a small drawer. But on the desk was a photo of a man. Same face as Marlon, but in full battle gear. "I found this in a restricted file," Mia said, placing a printout beside the photo. "You're Agent M13, right?" Marlon didn't answer immediately. Finally he said, "Yes." Mia sat down. "Why are you here?" He looked at the wall for a moment. Then he spoke. "There's someone dangerous hiding in this school. A threat to this planet. My job is to find them before it's too late." Nia's voice shook. "A student? Maybe, or a teacher. Or someone pretending to be both." She stared at him. "Why tell me?" "Because," he said softly, "you're not afraid of the truth." The next evening, Marlon walked past the science wing. He noticed a small red mark on the floor. He followed it. In the storage room, he found a tiny device stuck behind the wall, a listening bug. Very advanced. Military grade. He removed it, crushed it with his hand, and whispered, "They're watching me now." Later that night, Boz and Tino received a message from Rick. "Do not come tomorrow. It's going to get messy." He had already made contact with Vex. A plan was in motion. Back at the school rooftop, Marlon stood alone, looking at the stars. He wore his gloves now. His face was calm, but his mind was sharp. He knew what was coming. He could feel it in the air. At that moment, a signal flashed across a private channel. A hidden drone delivered a message from Earth Command. Enemy activity confirmed near student circle. Threat likely to strike within 48 hours. Permission granted to act in defense if exposed. Marlon didn't smile, but his eyes turned colder. The game was no longer about classes or bullies. The real fight was coming, and this time, the ghost wouldn't stay hidden. The next morning, the school seemed normal on the surface. Students moved between classes, teachers gave lectures, and machines hummed in the background. But beneath that normal world, something had changed. Rick didn't come to class. Bars and Tino stayed home. Marlon walked into class 4B, calm as ever. But his eyes scanned every corner, every face, every sound. Something was about to happen. He could feel it. And Nia could feel it too. After class, Nia sat in the library alone. Books and digital files were open around her. She wasn't studying for a test, she was digging deeper. She wanted to know the full truth about Agent M13. She had seen Marlon move like a trained warrior. She had seen him fall from a height and land like wind. She had seen the fear in Rick's eyes when Marlon looked at him. So who was he really? She opened the secure research channel used by the science club. With a few backdoor codes, she reached the planetary data archive. A warning flashed on her screen: unauthorized access. Military files, level 7 security. But Nia kept going. She copied the command Marlon had once used in class. Balance is everything. It worked. A file opened. Not much text. No images, just small bits of a record. Agent, name 13, status, active type, ghost, operative, Earth Command Silent Division mission, deep cover, observation and elimination of planetary threat. Last mission log, subject embedded in education center under false identity, Marlon, awaiting enemy signal. Nia gasped. He wasn't just hiding from someone. He was hunting someone. That evening, Nia found Marlon walking alone near the school gardens. She ran to him. Sir, please, I know everything now. I saw your file. He stopped walking but didn't look surprised. I asked you not to search, he said quietly. I had to, she replied. If you're here to protect us, I want to help. Marlon looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. You're smart, but this isn't a game, Nia. The enemy I'm looking for is dangerous. They're hiding inside this school. And they're not alone anymore. Nia swallowed nervously. You think it's Rick? No, he said. Rick was foolish, not evil, but he's being used. That same night, Rick was meeting with Torrin Vex, the city's local gang boss. Inside an old warehouse near the edge of the city, Vex stood tall. In his black coat, gloves tight, face cold. So Vex said, You're telling me your teacher is some kind of super soldier? Rick nodded. He's not normal. He took down a dozen guys without even breaking a sweat. He's here for something. I don't know what, but he's watching all of us. Vex smiled a little. Then let's give him something to watch. Back at school, Marlon stood in his small room, staring at a hologram. It showed 3 names blinking red: Torrin Vex, Mert, unknown inside asset. One of those 3 was hiding in plain sight. And Marlon had no more time to wait. The next morning, the school gates opened as usual. But just past the outer fields, a black vehicle waited in silence. Inside it sat Vex, watching the school with digital binoculars. Once we grab the girl, he said to his men. He'll come running. Which girl? One of the men asked. Her name is Nia. Inside the school, Marlon was teaching a lesson on ancient Earth generals. His hand moved across the board, drawing a clean diagram. But suddenly, he stopped. His head turned slowly toward the window. Something was wrong. Nia walked down the hallway, carrying her books. She didn't notice the 2 men in dark coats, moving toward her from opposite sides. But someone else noticed. Marlon. In a blur of movement, he left the classroom, ran down the hall, and reached the corner just as the men grabbed Nia's arm. One man said, Come with us. He didn't finish his sentence. In one motion, Marlin struck both men. One hit the wall. The other dropped instantly. Nia gasped. "How did you—" "Stay behind me," Marlin said. He pulled out a small black device, pressed a button, and the hallway lights turned red. Lockdown activated. Doors sealed. Windows turned opaque. The school was now in full security mode. Students panicked. Alarms buzzed, but Marlin moved like water, clearing every hallway. Scanning for more intruders, he found 2 more near the tech lab. In under 10 seconds, both were unconscious. Outside, Vex watched the alert systems turn red. He clenched his jaw. "He's faster than I thought." He turned to his driver. "Pull back, we're not ready. Not yet." Later that day, the school returned to normal. Authorities arrived, questioned staff, but the attackers had no IDs, no records, nothing. Marlin told the headmaster, Mrs. Keel, that it was a failed kidnapping attempt. He kept the truth hidden. But Nia knew. She sat across from him in his room that night. "You saved me," she said softly. "You weren't the target," he replied. "You were the message." Nia's eyes filled with worry. "So what now?" Marlin looked out the window. "Now I stop hiding." And for the first time, he unlocked the black case on his desk. Inside was a black coat with silver lining, a metal armband with Earth Command's mark, and a name badge. Agent M13, Ghost Division. Nia stared at the gear. "You're really going to fight?" Marlin looked at her, calm and steady. "I always was." The city of New Terra glowed under the night sky, but darkness moved silently through its streets. Inside the school, Marlin stood alone in his room. He was no longer wearing his old gray coat. Now he wore a black uniform, the mark of Earth Command Ghost Division shining faintly on his armband. His eyes were cold, focused. His mission was no longer silent. The enemy had made their move. It was time to make his. Across the city, in a warehouse filled with shadows, Torrin Vex stood with his men. He watched a screen showing live footage of New Terra High's front gate. His plan was simple: force Marlin to leave the school by targeting his weakness, Nia. "She's the only one he talks to," Vex said. "We take her. We send a message." One of his men asked, "What if he doesn't come?" "He will," Vex replied, a cruel smile on his face. "Ghosts always come back when you call loud enough." At the school, Nia was in the library. She had stayed late, helping sort old books for the science teacher. The halls were empty. The lights flickered softly. Then she heard it, a quiet click behind her. She turned. 2 men in black coats stood at the door. Before she could scream, one of them raised a hand. A dart flew from his sleeve. Darkness hit her in seconds. They carried her out the back quietly, fast, but not fast enough. Marlin had already seen them. From the rooftop, his eyes had followed their every move. When they slipped through the back gate, he was already moving. 10 minutes later, Vex's men dragged Nia into the warehouse. She was still unconscious. Vex stood in front of her, arms crossed. "Place her near the center," he ordered. "Then stand by. The ghost will arrive." The men placed her carefully and backed away. They had no idea what was coming. Outside, the wind was still. Then, in one silent flash, the main gate of the warehouse flew open. Nothing else happened. No shouting. No running. No sound. The guards moved to check. 1, 2, 3. Gone. No gunfire. Just silence. Inside, Vex was growing tense. "What's going on?" He looked at the camera screen. One by one, every guard had disappeared. He picked up his comm. "Unit 1 report. Unit 2? No reply. Only static. Then a voice came through, low and clear. "You chose the wrong day to test me." Vex froze. He knew the voice. Suddenly, a black blur dropped from the ceiling. It was Marlin. But not the teacher they knew. This was the ghost. He moved like a shadow. One guard charged at him. Marlin struck twice. The man hit the wall and didn't move. Another tried to shoot. Marlon threw a small metal pen dot. It hit the man's hand with perfect force. The weapon fell. The man followed. One by one, the room cleared. Vex grabbed Nia, placing the blade near her neck. "Stay back," he shouted. "You touch me, and she gets hurt." Marlon stepped forward slowly. "No, she doesn't," he said calmly. In a blink, he threw a small flash device to the ground. Boom. Light filled the room. Vex screamed, dropping the blade. His eyes were blind for a moment, but it was enough. Marlon moved in and struck him hard, sending him to the floor. Nia opened her eyes slowly. "Sir," he helped her sit up. "You're safe now." Outside, police drones arrived. Someone had triggered a silent alarm. Marlon didn't wait. He carried Nia out the back, using old alley paths. By morning, Vex and his gang were arrested. The media was full of reports about a failed kidnapping and gang takedown. The police claimed it was a combined operation between city security and anonymous agents. Nobody knew the truth. Nobody, except Nia. Back at school, Nia sat on a bench in the courtyard. She looked up as Marlon walked over. Now back in his plain gray coat, she smiled. "You're really good at pretending to be boring," he chuckled softly. "That's part of the job." "Why do you still stay here?" she asked. "Vex is gone." "Mission done, right?" Marlon shook his head. "No, the real threat hasn't shown yet." Nia looked confused. "There's someone else," he said. "Stronger than Vex, smarter. The person Vex was working for. Do you know who it is?" she asked. Marlon looked toward the main building. His eyes stopped at the top floor where the teachers' offices were. "I have an idea," he said. That night, inside the school's locked staff room, Marlon connected a black device to the central system. He began scanning communications, entry records, and files. One profile stood out. Someone had been sending data outside. The planet. Encrypted. Hidden. The file had no name, but the access code belonged to a teacher. Marlon narrowed his eyes. The trap he had walked into was only the beginning. Someone inside the school wasn't just helping the enemy. They were the enemy. Back in her room, Nia stared at the small metal card Marlon had given her earlier that day. It had one line written on it: "Courage begins with questions." She smiled and whispered, "I'm ready for answers." Marlon stood on the rooftop again, eyes on the stars. This time, the stars didn't comfort him. They warned him. The ghost had returned, but so had his past, and one final battle was still waiting. The morning sun rose slowly over New Terra High Institute. The school seemed calm, but inside, the air was heavy with tension. Marlon walked through the halls, feeling every step like a warning. The hidden enemy was close. He could feel it. Nia waited for him near the library. Her eyes were full of questions and fear. "Sir," she said softly, "I want to help." "I want to know the truth." Marlon nodded. "Then it's time." They moved to the teachers' offices on the top floor. The hall was quiet. The usual noise of busy adults was missing. Marlon stopped at one door. He looked at the nameplate. "Ms. Laura Finch. Have you noticed anything strange about her?" Marlon asked. Nia shook her head. "She's the one sending the encrypted messages," he said. "She's been hiding in plain sight." Inside the room, papers were scattered across the desk. A small device blinked silently. A signal transmitter. Marlon examined the room carefully. He saw a hidden panel in the wall. With a small tool from his coat, he opened it. Inside was a laptop, connected to the transmitter. Encrypted files were on the screen. Suddenly, the door opened. Ms. Laura entered. She was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "I wondered when you would find me," she said softly. Marlon stood firm. "Why are you doing this?" Laura smiled sadly. "I'm not your enemy, Marlon. I'm trying to protect something bigger than all of us." Nia watched, confused. Laura continued. "There is a secret plan to control this planet. Not just gangs or criminals, but powerful groups from outside. They want to use New Terra as a base to take over nearby colonies. Marlin frowned. Why help them? Because if I don't, they will destroy everything. Families, schools, lives. She paused. I was forced. I wanted to warn you, but I had no choice. Nia stepped forward. Then what do we do now? Marlin looked at Laura, then back at Nia. We stop them, he said. Together. Suddenly, alarms blared through the school. The emergency lights flashed red. Marlin grabbed his coat. Get ready, he said. We're not alone. Outside the door, armed men appeared. They had come for the transmitter. The fight began. Marlin moved fast. His training took over. He disarmed one attacker, pushed another to the wall. Nia hid behind the desk, watching, heart pounding. Laura used a small device to lock the doors. The men outside shouted but could not enter. Marlin's eyes met Laura's. Why are you helping us now? He asked. Because, she said, I choose my own path. Together, they made a plan. Marlin sent a silent call to school security. We need backup, he whispered. The attackers tried to break the door, but Marlin and Laura held strong. After tense minutes, the school security arrived. They arrested the armed men. The transmitter was seized. Later, Marlin, Nia, and Laura sat together. We stopped one threat, Marlin said, but there are more. Laura nodded. This fight will not end soon. Nia looked at them both. But why did you stay hidden so long? She asked Marlin. He smiled faintly. Because sometimes the best weapon is patience. The next day, the school was calm again. Bullies Rick, Boz, and Tino were gone. No one knew where. Marlin returned to the classroom. He wrote on the board. True strength is in protecting, not fighting. The students watched quietly. Nia smiled. Marlin looked at her. He knew the mission was not over, but for now, hope remained. The ghost had revealed himself, and the new story had just begun.